Chapter 12 The Minister's Vigil. Walking in the shadow of a dream, as it were, and perhaps actually under the influence of a species of somnambulism, Mr. Demestre reached the spot where, now so long since, Hester Prynne had lived through her first hour of public ignominy. Chapter 12 The Minister's Vigil. Walking in the shadow of a dream, as it were, and perhaps actually under the influence of a species of somnambulism, Mr. Demestre reached the spot where, now so long since, Hester Prynne had lived through her first hour of public ignominy, the same platform or scaffold, black and withered, stained with the storm or sunshine of 7 long years, and foot-worn too, with the tread of many culprits who had since ascended it, remained standing beneath the balcony of the meeting house. The minister went up the steps. It was an obscure night in early May. An unwearied pall of cloud muffled the whole expanse of sky from zenith to horizon. If the same multitude which had stood as an eye-witness while Hester Prynne sustained her punishment could not have been summoned forth, they would have discerned no face above the platform, nor hardly the outline of a human shape. In the dark gray of the midnight, but the town was all asleep. There was no peril of discovery. The minister might stand there, if it so pleased him, until morning should redden in the east, without other risk than that the dank and chill night air would creep into his frame, and stiffen his joint with rheumatism, and clog his throat with catarrh and cough, and thereby defrauding the expectant audience of tomorrow's prayer and sermon. No eye could see him, save that ever wakeful one which had seen him in his closet, wielding the bodily scourge. Why, then had he come hither? Was it but a mockery of penitence? A mockery indeed, but in which he saw trifle with itself, a mockery at which angels blushed and wept, while fiends rejoiced with jeering laughter. He had been driven hither from the impulse of that remorse which struck him everywhere, and whose own sister and closely linked companion was that cowardice which invariably drew him back, with her tremulous grip, just when the other impulse had hurried him to the verge of a disclosure. Poor, miserable man, what right had infirmity like his to burden itself with crime? Crime is for the iron nerve, for have their choice either to endure or it prays too hard, to exert their fierce and savage strength for the good purpose, and fling it off at once. These feeble and most sensitive of spirits could do either, yet continually did some things or another which intervened in the same inextricable knot, the agony of heaven defying guilt and vain repentance, and thus, while standing on the scaffold in this vain show of expectation, Mr. Demestre was overcome with a great horror of mind, as if the universe were gazing at the scarlet token on his naked breast. right over his heart on that spot. In very truth, there had long been the galling and poisonous truth of bodily pain. Without any effort of his will or power to restrain himself, he shrieked aloud, an outcry that went pealing through the night and was beaten back from one house to another and reverberated from the hills in the background as if a company of devils, detecting so much miserable and terror in it, had made a plaything of a sound and were bounding it to and fro. "It is now," muttered the minister, covering his face with his hand. "The whole town will awake and hurry forth, and find me here." But it was not so. The shriek had perhaps sounded with a far greater power to his own startled ears than it actually possessed. The town did not awake, or if it did, the drowsy slumberers mistook the cry either for something frightful in a dream, or for the noise of witches, whose voice had that period, who were often heard to pass over the settlements or lonely cottages as they rode with Santa through the air. The clergyman, therefore, hearing no symptoms of disturbance, uncovered his eyes and looked about him. At one of the chamber windows of Governor Billingham's mansion, which stood at some distance on the line of another street, he beheld the peer of the old magistrate himself with a lamp in his hand, a white nightcap of his head, and a long white gown enveloping his figure. He looked like a ghost evoked unseasonably from the grave. The cry had evidently startled him. At another window of the same house, moreover, appeared old Mistress Higgins, the governor's sister, who also with a lamp, which even thus far off revealed the expression of her sore and discontented face. She thrust forth her head from the lattice, and looked anxiously upward beyond the shadow of a doubt. This venerable witch lady had peered Mr. Demestel's outcry, and interpreted it, with its multitudinous echoes and reverberations, as the clamour of the fiends and night-hags with whom she was well known to make incursions in the forest. Dictating the gleam of Governor Billingham's lamp, the old lady quickly extinguished her own, and vanished. Possibly she went up among the clouds. The minister saw nothing further of her motion. The magistrate, after a wary observation of the darkness into which, nevertheless, he could see but little further than he might into a millstone, retired from the window. The minister grew comparatively calm. His eye, however, was soon greeted by a little glimmering light, which at first a long way off was approaching up the street. It threw a gleam of recognition on here a post, and there a garden fence, and here a latticed window pane, and there a pump with its full throw of water, and here again a arched door of oak, with an iron knocker and a rough lock for the doorstep. The Reverend Mr. Demestel noted all these minute particulars, even while firmly convinced that the doom of his existence was stealing onward in the footsteps which he now heard, and that the gleam of lantern would fall upon him in a few moments more, and reveal his long hidden secret. As the light drew nearer, beheld within its illuminated circle his brother clergyman, or to speak more accurately, his professional father, as well as highly valued friend, the Reverend Mr. Wilson, who, as Mr. Demestiel now conjectured, had been praying at the bedside of some dying man. And so he had. The good old minister came freshly from the death chamber of Governor Winthrop, who had passed from earth to heaven within that very hour, and now surrounded like the saint-like personage of olden times with a radiant halo that glorified him amid the gloomy night of sin, as if the departed governor had left him an inheritance of his glory, or as if he had called upon himself the distant shine of the celestial city, while looking toward to see the triumphant pilgrim pass pass within its gate. Now, in short, good Father Wilson was moving homeward, adding his footsteps with a lighted lantern. The glimmering of his luminary suggested the above conceit to Mr. Demestiel, who smiled, then almost laughed at them, and then wondered if he was going mad. As Reverend Mr. Wilson passed beside the scaffold, closely muffling his Geneva cloak about him with one arm, and holding the lantern before his breast with the other. The minister could hardly restrain himself from speaking. "A good evening to you, venerable Father Wilson. Come up hither, I pray you, and pass a pleasant hour with me." Good heavens, had Mr. Demestiel actually spoken? For one instant he believed that these words had passed his lips, but they were uttered only within his imagination. The venerable Father Wilson continues to step slowly onward, looking carefully at the muddy pathway before his feet, and never once turning his head towards the guilty platform. When the light of the glimmering lantern had faded quite away, the minister discovered by the faintness which came over him that the last few moments had been a crisis of terrible anxiety, although his mind had made an involuntary effort to relieve itself by a kind of lurid playfulness. Shortly afterward, the grisly sense of the humorous again stole in among the solemn phantoms of his thought. He felt his thing growing stiff with the unaccustomed chilliness of the night, and doubted whether he should be able to discern the step or the scaffold. Morning would break, and find him there. The neighborhood would begin to rouse itself. The earliest riser, coming forth in the dim twilight, would perceive a vaguely defined figure aloft on a place of shame, and great craze betwixt alarm and curiosity would go knocking from door to door, summoning all the people to behold the ghost, as he must think it. Son of the devout transgressor, a dusky tumult would flap its wings from one house to another, then the morning light still waxing stronger, old patriarchs will rise upon the grey haze, each in his final gown, and mantrally dance without pausing to put off his night gear. The whole tribe of decorous personages who had never heretofore been seen with a single hair of their heads awry would start into public view with a disorder of a nightmare in their aspect. Old Governor Billingham would come grinning forth, with his keen, James-faced axe and Mistress Higgins with some twig of the forest clinging to her skirt and looking sourer than ever, as Harley got a wing of a sleep after her night ride, and good Father Wilson too, after spending half the night at the deathbed, and liking ill to be disturbed thus early out of his dream about the glorified saints. Hither likewise would come the elders and deacons of Mr. Demester's church, and the young virgins who so idolized their minister had made a shrink from him in their white bosom, which now, by the by, in their hurry and confusion, they would scantily have given themselves time to cover with their kerchiefs. All people in the world would come stumbling over their thresholds and turning upon their amazed and horror-stricken visitors around the scaffold. Who would they discern there, with the red astern light upon his brow? Whom but the Reverend Arthur de Mastill, half frozen to death, overwhelmed with shame, and standing where Hester Prynne had stood, carried away by the grotesque horror of this picture, the minister, unawares, and to his own infinite alarm, burst into a great peal of laughter. It was immediately responded by a light, airy, childish laugh, in which, with a thrill of the heart, but he knew not whether of exquisite pain or pleasure as occurred, he recognized the tones of little Pearl. "Pearl, little Pearl!" cried he, after a moment's pause, then, surprising his voice, "Hester, Hester Prynne, are you there?" "Yes, it is Hester Prynne," she replied in a tone of surprise, and the minister heard her footsteps approaching from the sidewalk along which she had been pacing. "It is I, and my little Pearl." "Whence come you, Hester?" asked the minister. "What sent you hither?" "I have been watching at the deathbed," answered Hester Prynne, "at Governor Winthrop's deathbed, and have taken his measure for a rope, and now going homeward to my dwelling. Come up here, Hester, you and little Pearl," said the Reverend Mr. de Mastill. "Yes, have both been here before, but I was not with you. Come up here once again, and we will stand all three together." She slightly ascended the step and stood on the platform, holding little Pearl by the hand. The minister felt for the child's other hand, and took it. The moment that he did so, there came what seemed a tumultuous rush of a new life, other life than his own, pouring like a torrent into his heart, and horrifying through all his mind. And if the mother and the child were communicating, the vital warmth to his half-tropic system, the stream formed an electric chain. Minister whispered Little Bro. What would you say, child? Asked Mr. Demestor. Would, would you stand here with mother and me tomorrow noontide? Inquired Pearl. No, said not so, my little bro, answered the minister, for with the new energy of the moment, all the dread of the public exposed that had so long been the anguish of his life had returned upon him, and he was already trembled at the conjunction in which with a strange joy. Nevertheless, he now found himself not so, my child. I shall indeed stand with thy mother and thee on other day, but not tomorrow. Pearl laughed and attempted to pull away her hand, but the minister held it fast. A moment longer, my child, said he, but will you promise, asked Pearl, to take my hand and mother's hand tomorrow noontide? No, then, Pearl, said the minister, but another time. And what other time? Persisted the child. At the great judgment day, whispered the minister, and strangely enough, the sense that he was professional teacher of the truth impelled him to answer the child so. Then and there, before the judgment seat, that mother and I must stand together, but the daylight of this world shall not see our meeting. Pearl laughed again, but before Mr. Demesdale had done speaking, a light gleamed far and wide over all the marble scale. It was doubtless caused by one of those meteors, and which the light watcher may so often observe burning out to west in the vacant regions of the atmosphere. So powerful was its radiance that it thoroughly illuminated the defense median of the cloud betwixt the sky and the earth. The great vault brightened like the dome of an immense lamp. It shows the familiar scene of the street with the distinctness of midday, but also with the openness that is always imparted to familiar objects by an unaccustomed light. The wooden houses with their justice stories and quaint gable peaks, the doorstep and the thresholds with the early grass springing up about them. A garden plot flaked with freshly turned earth, the wheel-track, little worn, and even in the marketplace margin with a green on either side, all were visible, but with a singularity of aspect that seemed to give another moral interpretation to the things of the world than that have ever blown before. And there stood the minister with his hand over his heart, and Hester Prime with the embroidered letter glimmering on her bosom, and Little Pearl, herself a symbol and the connecting link between those two. They stood in the noon of that strange and so splendorous as if it were the light that is to reveal all secrets, and the daybreak that still shall unite all who belong to one another. There was witchcraft in Little Pearl's eyes and her face as she glanced upward at the minister, wore the naughty smile which made its expression frequently so elvish. She withdrew her hand from Mr. Demesdale's and pointed across the street, but he clasped both his hands over his breast and cast his eye toward the nymph. Nothing was more common in those days than to interpret all meteoric appearance and other natural phenomena that occur with less regularity than the rise and set of sun and moon, and so many revelations from a supernatural source. Thus, a blazing spear a sword of the flint, a bow, or a strip of a rope seen in the midnight sky, prefigure Indian warfare. Pestilence was known to have been foreboded by a shower of prison light. We doubted whether any marked event, for good or evil, ever before New England, from its settlement down to revolutionary times, of which inhabitants had not been previously warned by some spectre of its nature. Not seldom it had been seen by multitudes. Oftener, however, its credibility rested on the fact of some lonely eyewitness who beheld the wonder through the colored magnifying and distorted medium of the imagination and shaped it more distinctly in his afterthought. It was indeed a majestic idea that the destiny of the nation should be revealed in this awful hieroglyphic on the cove of heaven. The scroll, so wide, might not be deemed too expensive for Providence to write a people's doom upon. The belief was very one with the forefathers, as betokening that their infant commonwealth was under a celestial guardianship of peculiar intimacy and strictness. But what shall we say when an individual discovers a revelation addressed to himself alone on the same vast sheet of record? In such a case, it could only be the symptom of a highly disordered mental state. When a man rendered morbidly self-contemplative by long, intense, and secret pain, had extended his egotism over the whole expanse of nature until the firmament itself should appear no more than fitting passage to the soul, history, and fate. We imputed therefore solely to the disease in his own eye and heart that the minister, looking upward to the lineaments, behold there the appearance of immense letter, the letter A, marked out in lines of dual red light. Not but the matter may have shown itself at the point, burning duskly through a veil of cloud, but with no such shape as his guilty imagination gave it, or at least with so little definitiveness that another's guilt might have seen another symbol in it. There was a singular circumstance that characterized Mr. Demestel's psychological state at this moment. All the time that he gazed upward the linnet, he was nevertheless perfectly aware that little Pearl was hinting her finger toward old Roger Chillingwood, who stood at a great distance from the scaffold. The minister appeared to see him with the same glance that discerned the miraculous letter. To his features as to all other objects, the meteoric light imparted a new expression, or it might well be that the physician was not careful then, as at all other times, to hide the malevolence with which he looked upon his victim. Certainly, if the meteor kindled up the sky, the disclosed the earth with the awfulness that admonished Hester Preeney and the clergyman of the day of judgment, then my Roger Chilling would have passed with them for the archfiend, standing there with a smile and score claim to own. So vivid was the expression, or so intense the minister's perception of it, that it seemed still to remain painted on the darkness after material had vanished, with an effect as if the street and all things else were at once annihilated. "Who is that man, Hester?" gasped Mr. Demesne, overcome with terror. I shivered at him. "Does you know the man? I hate him, Hester." She remembered her oath, and was silent. "I tell thee," my soul shivered at him, muttered the minister again. "Who is he? Who is he? Can thou know nothing for me? I have a nameless horror of the man." "Minister," said little Pearl, "I can tell thee who he is." "Quickly, then, child," said the minister, bending his ear close to her lips. "Quickly, and as low as you canst whisper." Pearl mumbled something into his ears that sounded, indeed, like human language, but was only such gibberish as children may be heard amusing themselves with by hours together. At all events, if it involved any secret information in regard to old Roger Chillingworth, it was a tongue unknown to the erudite clergyman, and did but increase the bewilderment of his mind. The elfish child then laughed aloud. "Do you mock me now?" said the minister. "Thou wast not bold." "Thou wast not true," answered the child. "Thou wast not promised to take my hand and mother's hand tomorrow noontide." "Worthy sir," answered the physician, who had now advanced to the foot of the platform, "Pious Master Demesne, can this be you? Well, well, indeed, we men of study who are in our books have need to be strictly looked after. We dream in our waking moments, and walk in our deep. Come, good sir, and my dear friend, I pray you let me lead you home." "How knowest you that I was here?" asked the minister fearfully. "Verily and in good faith," answered Roger Chillingworth, "I knew nothing of the matter. I had spent the better part of the night at the bedside of the worshipful Governor Winthrop, doing what my poor skill might give him ease. He going home to a better world. I likewise was on my way homeward, when this light shone out. Come with me, I beseech you, reverend sir, else you will be probably able to do Sabbath duty tomorrow. Aha! See now how they trouble the brain. This book, you should study that, good sir, and take a little pastime on this night with Wince's well-grown-up you." I will go home with you," said Mr. Demesne, with a chill despondency like the awakening, all nevertheless, from an ugly dream. He yielded himself to the physician, and was led away. The next day, however, being the Sabbath, he preached a discourse which was held to be the richest and most powerful, and the most reported with heavily influence that had ever proceeded from his lips. So it said, more souls than one were brought to the truth by the efficacy of that sermon, and vowed within themselves to cherish a holy gratitude toward Mr. Demesne throughout the long hereafter. But as he came down the pulpit steps, the grey-bearded Saxon met him, holding upon a black glove, which the minister recognized as his own. "It was found," said the sexton, "this morning on the scaffold where evildoers are set up to public shame. Satan dropped it here, I take it, intended a scurrilous jest against your reverence. But indeed he was blind and foolish, as he ever and always is. A pure hand needs no glove to cover it." "Thank you, my good friend," said the minister. gravely but startled at heart, for so confused was his remembrance, and he had almost brought himself to look at the event of the past night of visionary. Yes, it seemed to be my glove indeed, and since Satan saw fit to steal it, your reverence must need handle him without gloves. Henceforward, remarked the old Saxon, grimly smiled. But did your reverence hear of the portent that was seen last night? A great red letter in the sky, a letter A, which uh, uh, which we interpreted to stand for angel. For as our good governor with with Winthrop was made an angel this past night, it was doubtless had be that there should be some notice thereof. No, answered the minister, I had not heard of it.